Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another one! Another one!
Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three and
He hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, welcome in to another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This is not Jim Coyle at the moment. JTP currently driving the train, as we mentioned last time we started off like this. Dustin Schutte with me, as always. We've got to come up with a nickname when segments like this happen to kick off the show, Dustin. In my head, whenever I was about to hit start on today's show, my thought was the John and Dustin Schutte Power Hour or something. That doesn't make any sense because we're not doing this for an hour. We may end up doing it for an hour without noticing, but I don't know. It's something that some of the audience have come to enjoy. Sometimes I typically enjoy it myself, even though it's usually a surprise when I end up doing something like this. But it'd be interesting if we could come up with a silly little title for whenever these moments do come up.
We're gonna have to workshop it a little bit. Mm-hmm. I don't have a good thing off the top of my head, but it's off the cuff. That's why people like it, because it's sporadic. Right. It's always a surprise. We don't know when it's gonna happen, but we're always prepared.
Speaking of surprises, my camera's not on. There's a specific reason for that. I look like a complete bum. That's one of the benefits and disadvantages of doing this show from my house. Yep. If I decide to get up at the last minute and do this, which not that I got up at the last minute, I just decided not to take a shower before the show. Decided I'm going to do that after the fact, and I decided to share that with you all. So I guess that just shows where we're at this morning.
Into the personal hygiene of John, the producer. That's what everybody wants to learn about.
I do shower every day. I want to make that clear. I just chose not to do it before the show today.
I look like a bum every day, so you're in good company. I mean, it is a rarity if sometimes I wear jeans, but I mean, usually you got, like the pajama pants or these, whatever they're called, swoosh pants that I'm wearing right now. So you're in good company. I just don't even care. I just put the camera on anyway. This is my money.
I thought about doing it, but I don't know. For some reason, I wasn't I'm ready for it this morning. But anyway, a couple things happened last night, or at least one thing happened last night. One thing happened this morning. Last night, Indiana lost to the Maryland Terrapins in College Park, 66-55. A game that when we talked about it yesterday that we knew was winnable for Indiana, but when you looked at the Vegas spread, Maryland was favored by 3. They ended up covering that pretty, I don't want to say, I guess you could say easily. They did cover fairly far off that 3-point spread, but a disappointing outing for the Hoosiers. I think everyone in the back of their minds knew that another letdown could be coming. For me, it typically seems to always come whenever I'm most confident in this team. I don't know why that's the case. I thought Indiana was going to take care of business on the road. I thought they had turned a corner a couple of games ago. But this is Big Ten basketball. Anything can happen. Maryland, obviously, as we talked about, has only one loss at home this year, lost to UCLA, who is a really good team. And Indiana just couldn't get it done last night. One thing I do want to point out, though, early on, I was yesterday during the show, I said Miller Kopp was going to hit 14 points last night. I was very excited early on when he got 5 points early out of the gate. Ended up not amounting to much in the end, but I just wanted to throw that out there. Obviously, I'm tooting my horn when I have no reason to be, but I was excited about the potential to toot my horn this morning.
Yeah, I was excited about that too, and I even put out a tweet after he scored his 5th point, because I think he had half their points at that early juncture in the game, and then some people, said don't jinx it, and I think I might have. So my apologies, but I'm not on board with the Indiana hasn't turned a corner yet, because this is Maryland they're the only team in the Big Ten that hasn't lost a home game yet, right? So that's obviously something to think about. Did Indiana play well last night? No, absolutely not. And I think they got lucky, because I think Maryland had a lot of open shots in the first half. I think the final score could have been actually a lot worse than it was. So it was a disappointing performance, but I'm not like, you don't rattle off 5 straight wins in this league without making some sort of adjustment or heading in the right direction. So what's going to be interesting is now you go back home, you play the number 1 team, you play your rival in Purdue. How do they look in that game? And I'm not necessarily even saying they have to win that game, but are you competitive? Do you play them tough? Does it look like the team we saw in College Park? Because that would be maybe a little bit more concerning. Or is it the team we saw that rattled off 5 straight wins, which included a road win against Illinois, which included a big home win against Michigan State? So obviously some things that are concerning for Indiana last night, but I don't put too much stock in it just because it's hard to play that way every night in the Big Ten.
Believe it or not, Dustin, if you look at ESPN's matchup predictor for the Indiana-Purdue game, they currently have Indiana favored at 53.4%.
Do they
Purdue.
Really?
I don't know if this is like a constantly updating metric that they have, or if this is based on before last night's result against Maryland. But that's just something I was looking at this yesterday, and the reason I wanted to look at it again, I was curious if it had changed. I don't remember how different it was or if it was different yesterday, but I don't know if that's based on the fact that it's, a rivalry game. Maybe they just like the matchup with Trace Jackson Davis. I don't know. Or for Trace Jackson Davis, excuse me, even though Zach Edey is player of the year currently. But
right.
I guess in past performances, Trace Jackson Davis has done pretty well against Zach Edey.
I wonder how that's measured. I've always wondered how this is measured. The win percentage or whatever it's called, the predictor. I don't know what it's even called, but like you go to ESPN's Football Power Index, the FPI, during college football season, and I could not tell you how that thing operates. It makes no sense to me because you might have a team that's 7-5 in the top 15. Like it makes legitimately no sense to me. So I don't know how the predictor goes, the win percentage thing works, but that's interesting. I don't think it's going to be an interesting matchup. That's for sure. This is probably one of the more intriguing Purdue Indiana games in recent memory because of the matchup between Zach Edey and
Purdue ever had. I don't mean to interrupt, but has Purdue ever gotten off to a start like this? At least in the past several years.
Purdue's never gotten off to a start like this in their history.
And at the same time, and I'm not trying to take away from anything Purdue has done because I think they are a potential national title. Wow, I can't speak. A national title contender.
National contender.
But at the same time, it doesn't feel like they're unbeatable. You know what I'm saying?
No, that's 100%
and maybe it's because they've had so many close games where they could have already taken a couple of extra losses that could have something to do with it. Well, but at the same time, maybe Indiana should be more afraid of Purdue. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if Purdue comes into Assembly Hall and wins by 15 or 20 points. But at the same time, it wouldn't surprise me the other way around if Indiana can win by 5 to 10.
I don't think Purdue's going to come in there and win by double digits. These games at Assembly Hall, even when Purdue has been really good and Indiana's been really bad, these games tend to be really competitive. So Indiana usually plays really well against Purdue at home. It's usually the road game at Mackey Arena where they've struggled.
Yeah.
I don't know that they should be afraid of Purdue. It's just, so you look back, Purdue could have easily lost to Nebraska on the road, right? That game could have easily gone either way. They could have easily lost to Ohio State. They could have easily lost to Michigan State. And there's probably
even if you look at their last 5 results, which I'm looking at right now,
Maryland,
3 of those last 5, they only won by 5 points at Michigan, 3 points against Maryland, 1 point at Michigan State. And I know they played Michigan State a second time, but won pretty handily.
So that would be, for me, looking at that from the Indiana perspective, it's positive and negative, right? I feel like you can say that because you look at that and you say, you know what? Purdue hasn't played that great on the road against good competition. And obviously Indiana's a good team. We didn't see the best performance from them in College Park. Understandable. I still think that whatever Jim says, I don't care. I still think it's kind of a trap game because you're looking ahead in that sense. And I don't care how focused Mike Woods, when you have the number 1 team coming in and it's your rival, that's going to get your attention a little bit. So I think if I'm looking at this from the Indiana perspective, you look at it and you say Purdue's very beatable, especially when we get them at home, and especially if we play defense the way we've been playing defense. The other side of the coin to that is Purdue's won a lot of close games this season.
That's true.
So if it comes down to the wire, Purdue has proven they can win those games. Indiana, I mean, how many close games has Indiana? I mean, the Xavier game earlier, I'm going to have to go back and look because I don't know off the top of my head. But
in terms of recent results, the only one is Minnesota, which is the worst team in the conference.
Right. And so they don't have they've had some experience in those games, but they've been on the other side of the coin. They lost to Iowa by 2. They lost to Northwestern by 1. So they've had some of these struggles where in those tight ball games, they haven't been able to finish, and Purdue has. So to me, that's where the concern comes in.
I mean, also, and I'm just looking at these standings. I know Jim brings this up a lot. It blows my mind how easily Purdue could end up winning the conference outright here and just by, I guess, maybe mid-February, right? That's how far ahead they are of everybody if they're able to take care of business.
They've got 3 fewer losses than anybody else. I mean, if they beat Penn State and beat Indiana on the road, maybe not mathematically they have it wrapped up, but I'd say they are going to cruise to a Big Ten title.
And I couldn't imagine. I wonder when the last time the conference race was decided this early was. Because it feels like it hasn't been like that in a long time.
No, usually the top 4 teams have some sort of there's some sort of, battle. But this,
and especially the fact that this is a team that wasn't even in the top 25 to start the year.
I know. It's crazy. And you look back now, and if Indiana hadn't suffered those injuries, or maybe I don't know if I want to say that, if they had come earlier in the season, because you started to see when this team gelled, like if Indiana gets back the game against Northwestern, if they get back the game against Iowa, that puts them at 3? Just those 2 games, that puts them at 3 losses. So if you win this weekend, Purdue's at 2, Indiana's at 3, you're very much alive in the Big Ten race. Right now, they're just hoping to get a top 4 spot in the Big Ten tournament so they can get that double bye, which is still possible because there's a log jam in that.
It's crazy. It's like Purdue. If in terms of, I know Jim would probably disagree. Purdue is the elite team in the Big Ten. Everybody else is good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why Jim struggles to say that Purdue is elite. Like I understand. Like I'm an Indiana fan. I'm not afraid to say that. Purdue can be elite, and you can still not like Purdue, but you have to be able to admit that they're a great team. Okay?
Right.
But outside of that, literally no team has less than 4 losses, which is insane.
I know.
So, like you said, logjam across the conference. Indiana has Purdue coming up. I know the Barstool IU account on Twitter, everybody loves them, made a comment about a week ago saying, "Can't wait to storm the court on Purdue again in February," and people love that just because, and that's one that we can get into this maybe a little bit later. We'll go and just quick thoughts on it. Storming the court, and I apologize for those of you who may be listening who disagree with this. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Here's the reason I say that.
What do you mean?
And I don't think Indiana would do it this year. Last year I understood because it had been a while since Indiana had tasted success. But the people who are storming the floor in these games are 90% students who more than likely haven't really understood what success in Indiana basketball used to be.
Right.
And they're there they're just having fun. So I understand why, if you're somebody who's been around the program for a long time and you don't like storming the floor because you've seen Indiana at its best, why that may seem disrespectful, I get it. But you have to remember, the people who are storming the floor are people who have never gotten to experience stuff like that. That's my argument against the people who don't like storming the floor.
Right. Well, I mean,
it's okay to not like it, but understand why people do it.
They would have been, this is around the time they would have been born, is about around 2000, right? So the last time, Indiana's played in 1 national championship game since then. I don't think they've not been to another.
None of these people remember. I mean, I was 5 years old whenever that happened.
Right, exactly. So I used to be more of a stickler on the field storming or court storming or whatever the case might be because I'm an old man who yells at cloud. I've gotten a little bit more lenient on it. I don't, because when you think about it, you're right. It is just kids having fun. Do what you want. I just hate with what's the word? I hate how frequent it is, right? Like it's kind of like when coaches get a Gatorade bath. It's like they do it all the time now. I'm like, come on, can we save these for special occasions? So part of me is like, do whatever you want. I don't care. Have fun. The other part of me is like, can we not do this after every game? It gets annoying after a while, and to me, it loses meaning. But
if we're being honest, I don't think there's, to my knowledge, unless I've just missed a lot of games, the only court storming I have seen this year was Kansas State, Kansas. At least legitimate court storming. You know what I'm saying?
I'm sure there's been others, but I don't know what they would have been off the top of my head.
We have the great Bob Kravitz coming up next. Jim Coyle may be with us here shortly. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good folks at Endeavor Hospitality, the WOW Club, and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. We'll be right back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Good morning, Mr. Kravitz.
Good morning. Where's Coyle? Is he in Maryland?
No, I'm going to give him a call here in a second.
We have no idea where he is.
No idea where he is?
It's usually, 9 times out of 10, it's he missed his alarm, so that's probably what it is.
That's funny.
So we'll do what I usually do. Give a live call on the air to see if he answers.
Please leave your message.
Look at that.
Oh boy. Hey, John, if this is gonna be if he's not gonna be here, you may need to cancel Kyle, because neither one of us live in Indiana.
That's a
and
good
I couldn't
point. I don't
tell
know
you anything about high school sports.
That's actually a really good idea. I'll if we get through with Bob and Jim's not on, I'll probably send him a text.
Because that'd be 20 minutes of
radio. We're not
silence.
Experts on high school basketball, Mr. Kravitz.
No.
I'm not an expert on anything.
I can agree with that as well. With myself, not for you. I guess, Bob, I'll probably start off just asking you about Tom Brady's retirement and stuff.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I covered his first start back in 2001.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah. They beat the hell out of the Colts, and Brady did nothing.
I'm
gonna run and get a water. I'll be right back.
Oh, you're good, Bob. You're good.
I got one right here. Never mind. I didn't think I had one. Man, it's been 2 months and my voice is still not all the way back.
That's horrible. I don't know if your situation was COVID related, but last January I had COVID and I didn't lose my voice for an extended period of time, but I was coughing for like 4 weeks straight, even after I finished up with COVID.
It wasn't COVID, I don't think, but I tested once, but man, my voice is just not all the way back. So no karaoke for me.
Not even to tequila?
Oh God, especially not tequila.
Have you seen that video that went? It probably has been a few years now, but it's just the guy doing karaoke, and then all it is him talking into the microphone, tequila. It's so dumb, but it's so funny.
When we were in Russia during the Olympics in Sochi, there was a bar where we were staying. It was a karaoke bar. Every night, me and a bunch of guys would get up and sing "Back in the USSR."
All right, here you go, guys.
Oh, that's awesome.
5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's WOW Club.
This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Jim Coyle not with us right now. JTP and Dustin Schutte currently running the show here. Now joining us, the great Bob Kravitz from The Athletic. Going to talk a little NFL right now. One thing we briefly mentioned before the show started, Bob, Tom Brady this morning announced or as you say, for the second time, announced his retirement.
Seems real this time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what to believe anymore with Tom Brady, though. That's the thing.
Yeah. I mean, I hope he doesn't pull a Brett Favre. I think that would diminish, what he's about. But I'm not saying anything really outrageous here, but he's the greatest quarterback I've ever seen. And, statistically, he's the greatest quarterback who's ever lived. I mean, for the longest time, I would have put Joe Montana on that mantle. But when you win, 6 Super Bowls, get to however many Super Bowls he got to, own virtually every statistical record in the book, I don't know how you say anything other than he was the GOAT. And
you had an opportunity to cover, when he started. Yes. So we just learned this in the break. And to cover his first ever game, looking back on it, the career he had, that had to be, just looking back, has to be awesome.
It's wild. So, okay, it gets worse, believe me. So the day before or 2 days before the game, the Colts had started out like a house on fire, and the Patriots were really struggling. I think they were 1-3 or something like that. And the day before the game, I wrote, yeah, they're starting some guy named Tom Brady. He's a 6th round draft pick. This ought to be a piece of cake. And well, as it turned out, he did not play real well. He didn't do very much, but I'll never forget Brian Cox, the linebacker, absolutely destroyed. I don't know if it was E.G. Green or Jerome Pathon or who it was, but it got destroyed going over the middle. And at that point, the Colts went into fetal position, and New England ended up winning that game. Brady was very pedestrian. You had no idea what was going to happen as the season wore on, and that he would eventually take them to the Super Bowl win over, I think it was the greatest show on turf.
You had a chance. I'm sure you covered a lot of games featuring Tom Brady. Is there a moment, a game, anything that sticks out to you most about during his career? Really putting you on the spot here and putting the pressure on.
Yeah, you're making me think, and I haven't had my coffee yet. How am I going to do this? Well, just how he controlled. The way he dominated the Colts is what I remember. And the thing is that, the one thing that he had that Peyton didn't have was a consistently good defense. And so he was able to. He didn't have to take crazy chances, he was just always in control, that controlled passing game with McDaniel as his coach. It didn't, I guess if I remember anything, it would be being at that Super Bowl in 2001 and thinking back to the first game I saw him play, his first start, and thinking, wait a minute, this son of a bitch just won the Super Bowl? Are you kidding me? But you know what I remember too is that John Madden, they had the ball backed up late in regulation, and John Madden was like, "Yeah, they're probably going to just sit on this." Well, nope, boom, boom, boom down the field. Adam Vinatieri from 40-something yards, they win the Super Bowl. So I think the audacity of Bill Belichick and McDaniel and, of course, Brady taking the ball deep in their own territory and saying, the hell with it, let's go get the win.
So now at this point, that really only leaves Aaron Rodgers in terms of veteran quarterbacks who have won a Super Bowl still currently in the NFL, correct? I don't want you to feel like I'm putting you on the spot again, but I think I saw something like this the other day. Now that Tom Brady is going to retire, Aaron Rodgers is the only veteran Super Bowl winning quarterback currently still in the NFL. Does that make sense?
Probably depends on how you define veteran.
Veteran, yeah, exactly.
Patrick Mahomes has won one.
Would you consider Patrick Mahomes a veteran at this point in his career, though? I guess he's getting there.
I would consider. I would put Matthew Stafford in that category, right?
That's fair enough. Yeah, Matthew Stafford. Okay, maybe not the only veteran.
There's a couple guys that I think would fit there.
Yeah.
So anyway,
there's a bunch of guys that I think fill that bill. So, but there's no doubt that the league is filled, especially the AFC is just loaded with young up and coming quarterbacks who are going to win their fair share of championships.
What are your thoughts on Jalen Hurts getting his opportunity? I was listening to a clip yesterday. It was a compilation of a bunch of pundits who were talking about how much Jalen Hurts wasn't going to ever make an impact for the Eagles, and now he's going to be playing for the Super Bowl. What are your thoughts on Jalen Hurts?
Well, good for him. I mean, he's made of the right stuff, that guy. I mean, we saw it, during his college career, what he's made of. And look, I'm going to pick Kansas City in the Super Bowl before you ask. Not that you care, but and I think because it comes down to it's very simple calculus for me. Which team's got the better quarterback? And I think as well as Hurts has played, to me, Mahomes he's different. He's just different. And so I think if they can get back some of their receiving threats, Juju Smith-Schuster, McCall Hardman, guys like that, if they can get them back by the Super Bowl, I just think they roll. I really do.
And then the other side here is you got some teams that are playing for a Super Bowl. You got some teams, Bob, that don't have a head coach yet. What's the latest development? What's going on with this coaching search? I mean, we just saw looks like DeMeco Ryans is headed to the Houston Texans. Sean Payton is headed to the Denver Broncos. I mean, what is taking Jim Irsay and the Colts so long to make a final decision here?
Well, I think part of it is that they've got some guys who are, going to be playing in the Super Bowl. Shane Steichen is a guy who they really have high regard for. I think they're going to end up going for the state-of-the-art young quarterback whisperer, whether that's Steichen or Callahan. I would not have any problems with any of the people they've got coming back for interviews, except for Jeff Saturday, who I think he's talked his way right out of this position. I really do. Him reaching out to reporters to try to make his case, I think is pretty cheap. I understand it, but it's not good form. And if I'm Ballard and Irsay, I don't like the way that's coming off. I forgot what the hell you asked me. I'm sorry.
I can transition into that because it feels like this Jeff Saturday thing. Okay, I didn't have as much of a problem as everybody else seemed to with them naming him the interim, because I thought it was going to be a scrap season, basically tank, just get the bigger picture. But now it's become bizarre, right? Like
it's become very bizarre.
I would not even consider him a candidate. And the fact that when he took the job, if I am terrible at this, I'll walk away. Right. Well, he was terrible at it, and clearly he's not walking away.
No. And I just don't see how you can sell that to this fan base. Not only the 1-7, but the excuses / explanations he was making at the end of the year. Oh, we didn't have offensive coaches. We didn't have this. We didn't have that. I was stuck with Frank Reich's way of doing things. I mean, all of that may be true, but it sounds like you're making excuses, right, and it doesn't reflect well on you or the organization. I don't think Saturday is still a major candidate. I think it's going to come down to Steichen and Callahan, and I like Raheem Morris. I mean, I really do. I think I like guys who've been there and done that. And you look at, Andy Reid. I'm not comparing them, but Andy Reid, Doug Peterson, Bill Belichick was a retread, for crying out loud.
Right.
Didn't do anything in Cleveland, had a losing record. So I wouldn't have a problem with any of those guys. I just tend to think they're going to go for somebody who's going to be able to work with a young quarterback.
Well, switching over to basketball now, a lot of Indiana fans, IU fans specifically in our chat, as always, disappointed in last night's game against Maryland. Bob, I know you don't always keep up with Indiana, but currently, what are your thoughts on the kind of the corner that this team has turned, even though that they took a loss that maybe – I mean, I know they weren't favored to beat Maryland last night, but a lot of people thought this was a winnable game on the road. They ended up losing by 11. What do you think this Indiana team's like at this moment?
I thought what we saw last night was that freshmen act like freshmen sometimes.
No.
You know, I mean, Hood Schifino has been terrific since Xavier went out. But, you had Bates and Hood Schifino were a combined 1 of 14, maybe something like that last night. You can't win that way. You got to have a good backcourt play, especially when they're zoning you up. And they did a little bit of that last night. So, look, I think IU is going to be all right. I think they have turned a corner. I think they've learned how to play without Xavier, and for a while they're without Race. I think they're going to be a top 4 team in the Big Ten. But, yeah, that was a chance to win. But, again, it's a good Maryland team, man. They're well coached. Not to sound like everybody who ever comes on radio, they're well coached. But Willard is a hell of a coach.
Right.
And, and they don't lose at home. That's a hard place to win. So I think you take it for what it's worth, and you put all your effort now toward what's going to happen on Saturday, and I cannot wait.
I'm glad you said that you thought that they turned a corner, because I've had that argument too. I think that you don't win 5 games in a row in this league as dominant as they were. Exactly.
Yeah.
And without turning a corner. So you're not going to play that way every single game in a conference like the Big Ten. So to me, what's going to be interesting is how they respond this weekend. And I was curious, are you going to be at Assembly Hall this weekend?
Indeed, I will.
All right.
I will be there. It's funny with the Athletic, they're not really big on game coverage, but I told them, I said, this is one of those games I need to be there.
Right.
And I have a different way of looking at it too. I've been talking with some NBA people about Trace and about Zach Edey. I mean, we haven't talked about Zach Edey in the NBA, but you got to think he's coming out after this year, don't you?
I would think so.
He's going to win Player of the Year.
The NIL thing makes it very interesting to me, because I don't know if this was 1994. He's gone. He's going to make a ton of money as the number 1 overall pick, right?
No, he's not going to be the number 1 overall pick.
In 1994?
Oh, 1994.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yes. 20 years ago, he's Yao Ming.
Exactly. He's going to be the number 1 overall pick. He's going to dominate, get a big time contract. In this day and age, you look at guys like Kofi Coburn, AJ. Like, I know he's a more dominant player, but you have to be a little bit more swift. So, what's the contract look like? What's his grade going to be? It's going to be really interesting. Let me just say, I wouldn't be shocked if he comes back next season.
I would not either. I mean, it's one of those deals where I wouldn't be shocked either way.
Right.
But, I actually, and I'll have this in my column Saturday or Sunday morning probably. I talked to Matt Painter about Edey and the NBA, and he had some very interesting things to say. So something to look forward to. But I don't know where he fits in the NBA.
Right.
Unless you're looking at a Brook Lopez type of guy, but Brook Lopez can shoot the 3. And right now, I don't know that Edey can shoot the 3. Is he capable of becoming a decent perimeter shooter? I think he could be. He's got a great form and a great touch. You see it from the free throw line.
Right.
But, whether he could transition to somebody who can shoot from a little bit of distance, that's going to be the hard part.
One of the things I was talking about earlier this week, we talked with Dustin DePuric, the matchup between Zach Edey and Trace Jackson Davis, easily right now 2 of the most dominant players in the Big Ten, maybe in the country.
Agreed.
Can you remember a matchup between these 2 teams in which you had 2 potential Player of the Year candidates going head-to-head?
Boy, you keep putting me on the spot.
I ask the hard-hitting questions, Bob.
You do. I'm sure that it's happened, a time or 2 or 10, but around here, I mean, look, when's the last time you had IU and Purdue both ranked?
Right. It's got to be at least 5 or 6 years, 2016 maybe.
I think it goes back further than that, but whatever. I'll actually look that one up at some point to check out the notes. But this is going to be epic, and I don't want to be an old man, but don't storm the floor if you beat Purdue.
Did you hear the tail end of our conversation before you came on?
No, I didn't.
Well, it's because I brought up that about a week ago, the IU Barstool account, which I'm not really a fan of on Twitter, mentioned that they were looking forward to storming the floor against Purdue again. And of course, that brought out all of the angry fans. Well, here's the thing. I don't think they will, and I don't think that they should. But here's my argument on why people shouldn't get upset about fans storming the floor. 90%, it doesn't matter what school it is, 90% of the fans that are storming the floor are students.
I agree.
A lot of these students have not experienced, specifically with Indiana, have not experienced the success that all the people who have been around for 40 or 50 years experienced in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, I've never had a problem with storming the floor. I just think that IU has developed its program to the point where, you know what? Even though Purdue is number 1, you should beat them at home. You're ranked 20, whatever they are ranked right now. This is something they should do. So look, I understand. My daughter, I'll never forget when she was at the game, the watch shot, and I remember I was looking out on the court and watching all these crazy kids, and I actually saw my daughter in the middle of the net. She's a student, and I thought, good for them. But that was at a time when Kentucky was 1.
Yep.
And IU is coming off several lean years in the early years of Tom Crean. I don't know look, if they do, I'm not going to trash them, but and I understand it. I was a student once 100 years ago as well, and we did the same stupid stuff. But I'm just saying, from the point of view of where IU is now, it wouldn't be some epic upset. I think
I agree.
They can and maybe should win.
What's up next for you, Bob?
Well, I'm going to Pacers, Lakers on Thursday. We'll find out Thursday if Tyrese Halliburton has made the All-Star team. I was glad to see that Andrew Nembhard and Benedict Mathurin made the Rising Stars game. I would think that Hield, Buddy Hield, will make the 3-point shooting contest. The big one, though, is whether Halliburton makes it instead of James Harden, because it really comes down to those two guys at this point. So I'm hoping it's Halliburton, and I'll end up writing that he made it or he didn't make it, and all the fallout from there.
I feel like the last 11 or 12 games is pretty evident that he deserves to be in the All-Star game.
Well, I was talking to somebody from their organization. They were saying, I hope that our losing streak without Tyrese nails home the fact or confirms the fact that he is uniquely valuable to this organization. I think you take James Harden away from Philadelphia, they're still pretty damn good.
Right.
You take Halliburton away from the Pacers, and they're a lottery team.
Yeah.
Bob Kravitz from The Athletic, thanks as always. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right. Please thank Jim for showing up.
To his own show.
We will.
All right, guys. See you later.
Take care, Bob.
Bob Kravitz once again from The Athletic. We'll be right back. The John and Dustin Schutte special on Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming right up after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Golfers, here's the deal.
That may be the worst transition to a break that I've ever done, but it happens.
Well, this is sporadic. This is the crazy show. I'll be right back.
You're fine. I gotta find
Did you contact Kyle?
Oh, yeah. I told him we don't need him.
Okay.
Oops. Oh, my gosh. Why is it doing that? Shoot. There we go. All right. I've been ignoring the Andy Moore Honda hotline today. I might need to check that out this segment. It has been intentional, guys. I've just been, producing and hosting at the same time. Let's see.
We could get to some comments this next segment.
I know. I'm trying to find some interesting ones.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
I saw something funny earlier. It was really early on.
This is what I'm going to pose to people that are on YouTube right now listening. Like, did last night's game not feel like just kind of a throwaway?
What do you mean in terms of that?
Like, just wad it up, throw it in the trash, get rid. Like, you're done with it. Like, it just. I guess I'm not overly concerned about it.
And actually, I did something yesterday when we were talking about, you and Jim were talking about, I guess Indiana's, like, do they need to win the game or whatever? Did it matter? And I was just looking at their schedule ahead. And really, other than both their games against Purdue, and there was one other opponent, I can't remember who it was specifically. Other than those three instances that I saw, I mean, they could be favored. And I say favored, I don't really know if I mean by like metrics or by Vegas or whatever. They could very well win the rest of the games after that. Like, they could be favored in those. Like, they're that good, and they've turned that big of a corner where they're kind of living up to their potential. So, I mean, currently the record I think they're going to end up with, just based on what I just said and what I don't remember the team specifically, but I came to the conclusion that and I guess I'm going to add a loss to it since they lost to Maryland last night.
Yeah.
I think they'll end up around 22-9 before Big Ten tournament play.
I think that part of it is the mindset sets in of
10 seconds, by the way. Sorry. We can just bring this back up. We're good.
Gourmet sandwiches, entrees, a coffee bar, bread, pastries, all made fresh and mouthwatering. Stop by Feast, Market, and Cellar today.
This segment is brought to you by RE/MAX Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment brought to you by RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore. Check her out at Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com. If you're in the Indianapolis area looking for a home, she will do anything she can to help you find where you need to go, where you want to live. Dustin Schutte with us, as always. We were talking about something in the break that was interesting. Dustin, you mentioned that last night for Indiana kind of felt like a throwaway game to you. What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, first of all, so I'm already catching, when we were talking about this in the break, and some of the commenters on YouTube are already giving me a hard time. So let me set this up. And what I mean is it wasn't a must-win game for Indiana. Yeah, Jennifer says, no, that was almost the end of the world. Throwaway depends on if this was a one-off or if the trend continues. And this is kind of what I wanted to point to. So, to me, when I say this felt like a throwaway game, it was just kind of like what Bob said. The freshmen didn't play well. Trace Jackson Davis, he had 18 and 20, but it felt like, this is going to sound really stupid for a guy that gets 18 points and 20 rebounds, but it felt like he was okay. Like, am I crazy to say that it felt like he was okay in that game?
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, obviously, he put up big numbers, but it wasn't the most dominant I think we've seen.
We've been so used to seeing the past several games, he's been easily the best player on the floor.
That's probably true. And Matt Painter said this after Zach Edey had 24 and 16, and he said he's just okay. So I think that is possible to have that. But you had tempo was a problem. It just felt like they were kind of out of sorts. And from a one-game perspective, after seeing what we saw the last 5 games, is that sometimes you're just going to play that way. Like, that's what I mean when I say a throwaway. Like, you're not going to play perfect basketball or play the way you did in the last 5 games every single night. It is so hard in this league. You had a Maryland team that hadn't lost at home. I do think Indiana should have won that game because I think they're a better basketball team on a neutral floor than Maryland. But they hadn't lost at home. They're not a bad basketball team. And it just I still think it had a little bit of that trap feeling. Is this?
And I agree. I don't mean to throw Jim under the bus. I'm not trying to, but trap game doesn't have to be that you're favored in the game. I think you made perfect sense yesterday, and I think Chronic Hoosier said the same thing, or maybe Mike DeCourcy. But you can't not look ahead to the Purdue game in it. Excuse me, sorry guys. You can't.
That's like the old.
Let me back up for a second.
Was it Blackstreet that song that "Let Me Clear My Throat"?
I think I swallowed some coffee grounds.
Oh boy,
that's not good.
That will ruin your morning.
Yeah, that's horrible. Anyway,
how do you make coffee? Why do you have grounds in your coffee? Let's
I just drink it black. But here's the thing.
Oh, you're blaming her.
Oh, I'm not blaming her. I'm blaming myself for not getting to it quickly enough. It's my own fault. Anyway, we're getting off the rails here. I'm trying to spin back around to where I was going.
I want to talk about coffee.
What was I saying? Oh, you're talking about the trap game.
Trap game, yeah. So
obviously, in any year, when Purdue is the next opponent on the schedule, that can be considered, the game before can be considered a trap game. Even more so now, Purdue not only is the best team in the Big Ten, they're the best team in the country right now. They only have 1 loss on the season. Obviously, Indiana fans, coaches, players, whether they say it or not, they're excited about playing Purdue next. They wanted to get that win against Maryland, but you can't deny the fact that each and every one of those players, especially the guys from in-state, were thinking about the upcoming game against Purdue. And I'm not making an excuse, but you have to understand that had to be at least a factor in last night's game. You mentioned it being a throwaway game. Yeah. Certainly, as things settled on in that game, they were maybe ready to move on to Purdue. And I get it. I know fans don't like hearing that, but that's just the reality. They're kids.
Right. Yeah, that's what I point to. You can't ask, even during like a college football season, one of the things that annoys me is when people say a team X should go undefeated, right? Or in college basketball, this team should be able to win these next 8 games. Well, have you ever been 18 to 22? And you know the different things that are going through your head and doing classes and going to practice and all that? Sometimes you just don't have it. Hell, we work. And sometimes you go to work and you're like, I don't have it today. It happens. It's part of life, and especially when you're 18 to 22. So that's why, again, that's another factor to me. This team's going to be fired up and ready to play. Like, don't look at that Maryland game and go, oh, geez, we got Purdue next. Like, I think the 5 games that they won are way more indicative of how they're going to play on Saturday against the number 1 ranked team as opposed to what we saw on Tuesday night. There's just a lot of factors that go into it. You had – well, it was a short travel week too, wasn't it? Didn't Indiana game?
Just a couple of days, yeah.
Yeah, short travel day, which I know that's part of the grind. Again, Maryland
just imagine when they're going to be traveling out to USC and UCLA in a couple of years. Though.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they make that one. Well, yeah. Hopefully they make that kind of a combined trip. But I guess I don't know how you're going to do that.
Well, we've still got a few minutes left here in this before we take our break, but it does look like our buddy Jim Coyle is going to make his return to the show here in a few minutes. We'll give him a second to get set up. But where was I going with that? Totally lost my train of thought.
Well, I got some.
Anytime our buddy Jim comes into the green room when we've been hosting the show, I always feel like I've got to get ready for the presence. Like the throne man is here. Like he's sat down, he's in front of his microphone. I think he's ready for me to pull him in. I'm not going to unless he gives me the signal, unless he pulls himself in. But he looks like he's raring to go. He's fired up. He looks like he's Muhammad Ali. Somebody sees me behind him giving a little. So last time I made the Roy Kent thing, and now I'm trying to do boxing. I don't know what I'm doing here.
This is great play-by-play of what's happening behind the scenes that nobody can see.
That's the great part. They can't see. So if I'm doing a terrible job, it's all on me.
That's true. Well, they will never know. That's the key. They're never going to know.
Well, looks like he's going to grab his coffee, so we're going to go ahead and finish out this segment. I'm going to turn on my cough button again for a second before I do something silly over the air.
So I was gonna get to some of these comments, and I can't put them up on the screen.
I'll get them for you. What do we got here?
So Steven Overdorf says IU played well enough. The officials made it ugly. Good flow through the first 15 minutes of the first half, and they started blowing the whistle. That's the start of that second half was about as ugly a basketball game as I've seen. Like the first, 8 to 10 minutes, neither team did anything pretty. Justin Beard, they've built a little cushion with that win streak. TJD had a relieved look after that game, maybe pressure off to keep it going. Kyler Staley, contributor to Hoosier.com. Nobody should be concerned with that loss last night. The winning streak was going to end at some point. Winning at Maryland was going to be tough regardless. Indiana showed fight throughout. That I do agree with. I do think that they showed fight. I kind of agree and disagree with Kyler on that. Let me walk that back a little bit. I think they showed fight, but they were out of sorts defensively. Like Maryland got a lot of open shots that they missed. And I thought Maryland could have blown the doors wide open in that game. Really.
Last thing before we get to break, this is something that I don't think we brought up yet. And I don't know that we've brought it up at all this week. But I know the reason for this, but it still drives me insane. College Game Day is going to unranked Duke versus North Carolina over Indiana versus number 1 Purdue. And like I said, I know the reason. You have the partnership with the ACC and the SEC. Right. I'm sure that's the number one reason that's happening. If we weren't in the day and age where it was Fox versus ESPN with the Big Ten, the Pac-12, and then the ACC and the SEC, I know the Big 12 is kind of nonchalantly doing their own thing. They may eventually, pull something like that out, but it just bothers me that that's the kind of thing that they're going to. They're not going to pick the best game. They're just going to pick who they are supporting and what means the most to them. And ESPN has been the biggest Duke UNC ass kissers for 15 years.
That's true.
It's fine. It's probably one of the best rivalries in college basketball. But come on, make a smart decision here. It is what it is. I understand, but any thoughts, Dustin, before we go to break?
I mean, it's all because of the contract. I'm sure it's all because of the contract. They don't want to give the Big Ten any more publicity or any more of those benefits in terms of bringing College Game Day. But whatever. I'm going to be honest. The show sucks, so it doesn't bother me. I don't.
Yeah, it's not what it used to be. None of it's what it used to be. Right. Now, at least the football side of things, they've added, Pat McAfee and stuff like that, but.
Right.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there. We're going to go ahead and take our next break. Jim Coyle is going to return for the second hour of the show. Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. The John and Dustin Power Hour, as it ended up being.
It was a full hour.
It was a full hour. So thanks for dealing with us. You're the man, the myth, the legends coming up next on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment brought to you by Barber Pop Real Estate Services. If you're down in the Jeffersonville, New Albany, Southern Indiana area, be sure to reach out to Barbara Pop. We'll be right back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andy Moore.
All right. Welcome back, Jimbo.
Welcome back.
John doesn't know that theme song. Welcome back, Cotter.
Is it from the Bicycle movie?
No, this is from a show called Welcome Back, Cotter. It was a sitcom.
Yeah.
That Arnold Horseshack.
What's your hat say?
Metalworks Brewing Company.
Oh, nice.
He's been wearing it all week. I thought or maybe he hasn't. He wore it a lot last week.
I thought he wore the Ugly Grouper one yesterday. Or did he wear a hat yesterday? No, he was doing his hair in the camera.
My phone is dead. That's what happens when you don't plug them in. How was Bob and Kyle?
Well, Bob was good. We called off Kyle because we would have had nothing to talk about.
Called off the dogs, baby.
The high school sports scene in Indiana, not John and I's forte. But that's okay.
All right, I'm back. The high school sports.
People going nuts. Dickie V will be on here. That's right.
What'd you say? Oh, yeah.
Don Lincoln. Hey, there's a new name.
That is new. Thanks for coming on, Don Lincoln.
Yes, sir.
Howie said this seems to be the show name whenever it's me and Dustin don't have it today. He also said something earlier. I didn't get it. Oh, let me see how much time we have left. 57. Okay. It was at the very beginning. It was one of those nicknames. John Code Phrase Alden. I didn't know what he was referring to. Do you know what he's referring to, Dustin?
I'd have to go back.
And then also, this is a good one. Bathroom habits with John.
With John. There we go. We could have done that. Look, I'm just saying this was, I've gotten no sleep this week, so this has not been my best performance.
Welcome back, Cotter. That's what made John Travolta. That's right. That was his first.
All right, here we go, boys and girls.
On Horseshack. Mr. Cotter! Mr. Cotter!
Here we go.
Charge. So leave the heavy lifting to us and enjoy healthy eating with stocked meals in your fridge. Order online today at thefreshfork.com. Fresh Fork is a proud partner of WOW Network. This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you here on this Wednesday. Thanks a lot for joining us. Jim Coyle with you. Dustin Schutte, as well as always, and producer John the producer, keeping us between the white lines. Hope everybody's day is going well. I did not expect Indiana to win last night.
You did not.
There is a reason Maryland was 10-1 at home. That's where they play well. They suck on the road. They couldn't win a game on the road if you paid them. But they win at home. And as you said, the streak was going to end at some point. You're not going to go through this league on a 14-game winning streak.
Right.
Purdue doesn't even have that.
This is why I said that last night's game was kind of a throwaway. Like, I went into it thinking Indiana had a much better shot to win, but it was just sloppy. Nobody played well. I don't know. I don't think that that's indicative of what this team's going to do on Saturday. I think you look back at the 5-game winning streak, and I think that you feel confident in your ability to hang with and give Purdue a challenge. And if it comes down to the final, couple minutes, you have a great chance to pull off a huge upset.
Yeah, I didn't expect him to win last night. I just didn't. You've got, after winning 5 straight, you're going into a completely different environment, and I do not agree with anyone that thinks that they're looking ahead. I heard that yesterday. I just don't.
I think they are.
That game is far enough away still, or was far enough away, and you knew you had your. I just don't. I think that they just got beat.
They did just get beat, but I think that's also a factor in it. You've got everybody's talking about that game. It's impossible. I don't care what anybody says. It's impossible to not understand what that game's going to be about, the atmosphere. I'm not saying it's the reason they lost. I'm just saying it was a factor. I think you had guys looking ahead to that game. And they're 18 to 22-year-olds, or in some cases like Race Thompson and Trace Jackson Davis, maybe 34-year-olds. But to me, it's a factor. You can't look at the number one team, your rival coming into your home arena. I mean, tickets are selling for high dollar. Everybody's going to be there. Big time game. They had to have looked ahead a little bit. I'm not saying it's the reason they lost. I'm not saying they were thinking about that game during the Maryland game. That's just how it is.
Well, Trace Jackson Davis wasn't. He had 18 points and 20 rebounds.
Okay, but this is what I said earlier. And feel free to disagree with me on this. I thought he was just okay. Did you I wasn't over he had a great game. Don't get me wrong. Great game. But did anybody feel like it was just like, yeah, he's okay? He played well. It wasn't like some of these other games where he just dominated. I didn't get that same sort of feeling.
Well, he scored almost half their points.
Maybe it's because they didn't win. I don't know what the reason was, but it just didn't seem like the same sort of performance. I don't know why.
Probably because they lost. They only scored 50 points in the game, and that's the biggest. That's the issue right there.
Right.
You're not going to win any game against anybody scoring 50 points.
Well, you can beat Wisconsin scoring 50 points.
I don't know. They're going to score 55. They'll beat you.
I don't. Boy, we don't need to talk about Wisconsin because it hurts my brain.
Wisconsin. I'm looking forward to talking to Rick Bozich.
And see if this is the worst team he's ever covered in the history of sports.
The worst team he's ever covered in sports right now is Louisville.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Oh, yeah. They're horrific. And I don't understand why they're that bad. They compare them to the Indiana team in 2008, where basically everyone was kicked off or left. They were left with, I believe, 2 scholarship players. Well, and those were guys that were down on the end of the bench.
I thought the only scholarship player was Kyle Tabor. I could be wrong. That's what I
you could be correct. You might be correct. I'd have to look back. You might be absolutely right. I know that they were decimated, and they basically fielded a team with just walk-ons and patchwork. It was like that movie. What was the movie? There was a football movie, The Replacements or something.
Oh, yeah, The Replacements. Yes.
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves.
This was The Replacements, man.
Well,
and
but
they won 6 games. They were competitive.
They were competitive in some games.
And you know what else? Assembly Hall was always had people in it.
Right. Well, because I think they understood. They knew it wasn't going to be a good team, but it was really nobody's fault. I mean, it's not anybody's fault on those teams, so they went out and supported anyway. The problem, everybody can say whatever they want about Tom Crean, right? I don't care whether you think he's a good coach or not. Clearly, he's a better coach than Kenny Payne.
Oh.
So that to me makes the difference when you're in a similar situation, because the ACC is not great this year. They should be able to win some basketball games. They are just so awful. To me, that speaks to, yes, they weren't going to be good anyway, but to be this bad, like the coaching is just awful.
Fazan from Amon Jordan says that Indiana did not have the oomph in them. He could see it in their faces, and very well. I mean, I don't know what it is and why that Maryland is just, they're almost unbeatable at home and could not win a game on the road if you paid them. It's a tale of two cities, baby.
It is a interesting phenomenon.
Mike thinks that Trace Jackson Davis waited way too long for the double team last night instead of just going with the ball. He had a great stat game, but he was off as well. He does that a lot. We talked about that yesterday with Don Fish when he was talking about comparing him to Dr. J with the palm of the ball out. And yeah, you know what? That looks cool when Trace Jackson Davis does it, but he's not Dr. J. He doesn't have the hops Dr. J did, nor the athletic ability that Dr. J did, nor the shooting.
Right.
But I don't know what it is when you're in an opponent's environment. It's weird why you can't play the same, why teams don't play the same. It's really weird how that plays into the psyche.
There's probably some of it that has to do with the travel. I mean, it's a further. I mean, you have to go to Rutgers, you have to go to Maryland, you got to go to Penn State, and those are further distances away. And I'm not making an excuse, but it might add to the element as to why. And it was kind of a short travel week for them. They played Saturday, turn around and play on Tuesday.
Yeah, those are weird. We're always weird.
So I'm sure that in Indiana's poor performance, again, I still think that looking ahead played a factor into it. And then again, some nights you're just not going to have it. Some nights you're not going to show up.
Brad says he thinks that Maryland was doubling hard on TJD and aggressively, more so than other teams, which is fine. He's got to be ready for that at this point.
Well,
and
I think that's what Purdue's going to do too.
Dude, you're 6'9". Pass the ball.
Well, I mean, who was he going to pass to last night? Nobody was hitting shots.
Me should have passed it to me.
You could have taken it from your recliner.
I was wide open, baby. I'm wide open.
You might have had a better shooting percentage than everybody else on that team. So at some point you just got to try to take over, and I don't know. It was just a weird game. That's all I can say. That's why I sound like a broken record because I've said this 47 times, but just wad it up in the trash, throw it away. I know they're going to watch film on it and take some stuff away, but just a weird game. Nobody played well. Wasn't great. Just get it out of your head. Go play Purdue.
Yeah, well, they'll get that opportunity on Saturday, and they've got enough time to think about it. That's a gigantic game. It's for a number of reasons. First of all, the comparisons between Trace Jackson Davis, or actually, there was something that came out yesterday that basically tried to sew up and hand the player of the year to Zach Edey because he had this 36-point performance. And this is not because we cover Indiana. And God dang it, because this is not a homer statement. But I can't understand. Trace Jackson Davis just had, 4 30-point games in the last couple of weeks?
Mm-hmm.
Zach Edey has 1. And people go off. Oh, boy, oh, God. Zach Edey, he might as well have sent the trophy to Zach Edey. Gee, he's, boy, there's no doubt he's a player there. It's the first freaking 30-point performance he's had this year, I think.
No, he's had at least 2.
No,
he had 38 against Michigan
3.
State.
He's had 3, I think. 3. He hasn't had more than Trace Jackson Davis has had.
Right.
And Trace Jackson Davis had 2 in 3 games. And there was not this big uproar about that. It's because of whose team he plays on and who's getting the attention. Indiana's not getting the attention. And that's the case. Now, what happens when Purdue goes down? in the NCAA tournament. That is going to be – there's going to be more pressure on Purdue in this NCAA tournament than I think ever before.
I would say that's false.
Why? Because
they've got the
greatest player in the history of the world, according to the national media.
Here's the thing. So first of all, to the point about player of the year, I do think Trace Jackson Davis deserves to be in that conversation. The difference is that Zach Edey changes the game so much, even if he's not scoring, even when he's not rebounding, he changes the game so much that it catches defenses off guard. Like, teams can't defend every weapon that Purdue has. Trace Jackson Davis has to put up those numbers in order for Indiana to win. So
is Zach Edey.
Not necessarily. Like, he can find other guys. They have better shooters.
Whoa. No. You can't take Zach Edey's numbers out of this equation, because that's part of the whole deal. You cannot take his numbers out.
He doesn't have to score 30 points for them to win.
Bullshit.
He can't.
You take Zach Edey out of the equation, they don't win.
I didn't say take him out of the equation. I just said he doesn't have to score 30 points.
Yes, he does.
But he's only scored 30 points 3 times this season, right?
But he doesn't have to score 30, but he's got to score 20 up in the high 20s.
Okay.
He's got to be. He has to score his average. He has to score his average, or they do not win. You take Zach Edey out of the equation.
They have one loss this season, so clearly he's doing that.
He has done that.
Okay. So I'm not saying if you take him away, Purdue is not a good. Well, I don't know if they're not good. They're not great. They might be a 500 team. I don't know. I don't know what their record would be. Be quite honest.
Without Zach Edey.
Yeah, they'd probably be around a 500 team in the Big Ten, right? I think that's fair.
Or less.
But they would be – I would give Matt Painter the benefit of the doubt because he's done it before. So I'm going to say around 500.
Not with freshman guards. No, I think they'd be under 500. They would be under 500. They would have a losing record without Zach Edey. Losing record.
I don't think
without questions.
I don't think that's the case.
I just have, before we go to break, wouldn't that further prove why he's the best player if he's that much of an impact if he's gone, if they're bad without him? Doesn't that solidify why he's that good of a player?
No, because if he takes Trace Jackson Davis from Indiana, they're horrible.
Well, that's why I'm saying both of them can be in the same boat. I feel like the argument goes against what both of you are saying when it says if you take them away, then they're the most valuable player. Proves why they're the player of the year candidates.
No, that just proves that's why they're the most valuable player on their teams. That does not make them the most valuable player.
So who would you give it to?
Of everybody.
Because the other part of it too is that Edey's done it all season long, and Trace Jackson Davis.
First of all, I'm going to wait till the season's over. You have to wait till the season is over and see what happens.
Well, I agree with that, but we do a talk radio show. And we're in the media. We're supposed to talk about these things.
I understand. We're halfway through the season. We're at the halfway point. So it's got to play out. He's just, damn it! It's just because he's 7'4".
Oh, it is. This is the worst take. It's not just because he's 7'4". There are other guys playing college basketball who are that are over 7 foot. Not even close.
Marion Sharp from Western Kentucky. He's garbage.
Yeah, and there's I think there's a kid at Western Carolina, I believe. I'm gonna have to go back and look. But there are other players in the league that are over 7 foot who are not nearly as good.
I can imagine that because they're just not athletic.
So why do you punish a player who just because he's big? I don't understand this logic.
I'm not punishing.
You just said it's because he's 7'4".
No, he's done a great job because he's not getting fouls called on him. He's done a tremendous job. No, I'm saying he is doing a great job because he does not get called on fouls. So he's doing a good job of using his size.
Yes,
without he changes the game. There's no doubt he changes the game.
And this is my point. This is why he's the National Player of the Year, the top candidate right now. That's why he's being talked about.
I agree with you that he's the top candidate.
And I agree with you. You have to wait until the full season. You don't want to just give him the award now. I get it. But having said that, right now, throughout the course of whatever game we're at, 23, he is, to me, undoubtedly the National Player of the Year. Doesn't mean in 10 games he can't fall off a cliff and average 12-7, and then Purdue loses 5 or 6 games, and then we change the conversation. That's what happens throughout the course of sports. So
we got to take a break. When we come back, what time? Let's see.
Bozich.
Rick Bozich. Cannot wait for that one. Big Ricky B from WDRB.com will join us. Brought to you by our friends at Metalworks Brewing Company. Served at all the Endeavor Hospitality restaurants, whether it's Southern Stone, Courtroom Sports Grill, Feast Market and Cellar, Cabello. Stop by and enjoy Metalworks Brewing Company, or just go straight to the source, located right off the square in the former Fuxton Brewery location. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home.
Oh, sorry, Rick. Do you need a moment to fix your
I got nothing, man. I got nothing today.
Hey, I'll just look. Don't worry. I just throw the hat on, man.
I left the hat upstairs.
I'm gonna let my hair down, man.
Yeah, you took. Yeah, let it down. Let it down. How are you doing, Rick?
I'm good. How are y'all?
Look at these comments you stirred up. Jesus Christ!
What did you say?
If Edie was 6'9", he'd be mediocre. No shit. I mean, Jesus.
You said that?
I didn't say that. Jim said that Edie's only good because he's 7'4". And now we got a bunch of commenters in here who are agreeing.
I said he only affects the game like he does because he's 7'4".
Who do they play tonight, Penn State?
Who?
Yes.
Purdue.
Oh, Purdue.
Yeah, Penn State.
Home against Penn State?
Yeah.
An easy win.
Does Georgia Tech have an easy win tonight, Rick?
I think Louisville could win the game. I mean,
they're only favored by 2, aren't they?
I haven't checked lately. Georgia Tech just lost to Duke at home. Got the score doubled on them.
Do they still have that same guy coaching them that got into the issue?
Josh Pastner.
Yeah, the guy that used to have during COVID, he had that welding mask on.
Does he still throw up the shapes when he calls out plays?
You don't remember that?
No, I do.
Glad I could make somebody laugh today.
Oh, man. That's great. Oh, yes.
If Louisville doesn't win either tonight or their next game against FSU, they're going 2-29, in my opinion.
Yes, they are.
Will Kenny Payne be there next year?
Yeah, he'll be there.
Oh.
Rick, do you think there's any chance that he steps down at all? Like he just knows he's not cut out for it?
No, I don't think
no chance.
Nope.
Wow.
Well, he's not going to step down because of the buyout. He will make them fire him.
Well, like a mutual agreement kind of thing, I wouldn't be surprised with. But Rick, I believe your word if you say no. So
he'll be there.
All right, here we go.
New brews and will be offered in all Endeavor Hospitality restaurants. Come taste with Dr. Hobbs' Brewing, Metalworks Brewing Company. Bring your passion and your thirst.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyles, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio commentary here on this Wednesday. It's February 1st. It is the birthday month, baby. Celebration begins. And we celebrate by bringing on the great Rick Bozich from WDRB.com, the Hall of Famer. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Had a late night last night, obviously watching Indiana and also Kentucky Ole Miss. And tonight I'll be at the battle for 14th place in the KFC Yum Center as Georgia Tech against Louisville.
The battle of the bottom.
Are they passing out sleeping masks for the game? Is that going to be the not the fundraiser, but the prize for coming to the game?
It'll be interesting to see what kind of crowd shows up. I'm not sure what the weather forecast is going to be, but luckily it's a 7:00 game. The crowds have actually been fairly consistent in the 8 to 9, 10,000 range. But now that we get towards the end of the year, the interesting thing about Louisville, and I know we don't want to talk about Louisville the whole time, but they did add a player last week from Africa, and he finally got in the game against Notre Dame and did a few things. So, we'll see what kind of player he is over the last half of the ACC season. But, yeah, it's be a little bit different game than the game you all watched last night.
Yeah, Louisville or Indiana traveled to Maryland, which is kind of a Bermuda Triangle for most teams. Maryland can't win a game on the road if you pay them, but they couldn't lose at home. They can't lose at home, it seems. They've lost one time, and that was to UCLA. Indiana, the latest victim, as they go there, only score 55 points, which you're not going to win any game scoring 55 points. Even maybe if you play Wisconsin, you got a shot. But they just they were successful at shutting Indiana down. Other than Trace Jackson Davis, it's like they just, all right, you can have yours, but we're going to shut everybody else down, and they did.
Yeah, a couple things stood out to me about that game. One is they played sort of a soft press where their intention was to disrupt Indiana's offense and kind of make them slow to get it started. And Indiana played right into their hands. There were a couple of times they sort of attacked the press, and once they got across midcourt, they tried to score quickly, and they were successful. I think on half of those attempts, but on too many times, it's like they're just content to get the ball across half court and then start the offense, with less than 20 seconds to go on the shot clock, and didn't really get a good shot. Second thing I'd say is, and I need to check the numbers to see if this is accurate, but it sure seems like, if you just compare Big Ten home games and road games, that Indiana has a number of players that are much more comfortable and much more effective shooting the ball at home than they are on the road. They go on the road and they just don't look confident, offensively. And the third thing was Jalen Hood-Schifino just had his worst game. You at one point, I know he was like 0 for 8 with 4 turnovers. I think he finished 1 for 14 with 4 turnovers. I admire his confidence to keep shooting, but at some point, you have to try something different. And nobody else stepped up to help him. And and as we've talked about before, I'm also not a fan of Race Thompson getting as many minutes, because I think when he's in the game, his presence in the lane gives the other team another player to double Trace Jackson Davis with, and he's not as effective. So that's my takeaway from that game.
I agree.
And I saw this pretty frequently on social media last night. He does not, and I don't know if this is still coming back from the injury, he just doesn't look like the same player. Like I don't even know if I know how to describe it, but there was a time in that game when he had 3 guys around him, pump faked, got his shot blocked, and he just stopped. He looked back to see where he was shocked that his shot got blocked. I don't know if there's something mentally going wrong there, but I agree with you. Him getting as many minutes as he is, I think, I don't know. I don't want to say it's going to be a problem moving forward, but I think there's some concern there.
Yeah, and he took that 3-point shot. I know that Woodson encouraged him to do it, but if you subtract the Arizona game where he was 4 for 7. In the rest of the games, he's 4 for 25 shooting threes. All right, that's enough of a sample size that tells me don't be shooting threes.
Right.
I mean, they want you to shoot threes. They don't look like good shots. And for whatever
reason, one the
reason,
other night in the home game at the beginning of the shot clock.
it's ridiculous. It really is. And I guess Woodson doesn't want to discourage guys from shooting, but at some point, you have to be rational about it and say, do you want a guy shooting less than 20%, taking, 1.5 threes a game? I don't think you do.
Yeah, they've got to stay the same as that they've been. Chris points out Galloway only took 4 shots. That's a guy that's got to continue to look for his shooting because he's been successful. His confidence is up there, but I think he gets dissuaded by the other guys taking those shots that they're taking. And
right.
We talk about people like Miller Kopp who needs to take more shots, Trey Galloway that needs to take more shots instead of Race Thompson shooting from the damn 3-point line. I've never understood that. And the other night at home, like I said, they come down, they literally come down the floor, and he gets the ball and pops a 3-pointer. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? You're just in the beginning of the rotation, and of course he missed it. And
it's obvious that it's okay. I mean, it's obvious that Woodson's okay with it. He's encouraging it, and he's fine with it. I mean, especially when you see that, when you see a guy taking a 3 before there's 20 seconds left on the shot clock, it's obvious that the coach is encouraging him to do that, and he believes he can do it, and that's fine to be supportive of your players, but you also have to balance that against what are your eyes telling you, and your eyes are telling you that he's not a good 3-point shooter, and that the other team knows he's not a good 3-point shooter, and they're happy to let him take threes. And I agree with you. There was late in the first half. There was a play underneath the basket where he was surrounded by 3 guys, and he kind of went up. He's not 100%. There's no way he could be, considering what that injury was. He's still wearing the sleeve, and he doesn't have the lift that he had before. And so, when you get against guys who are athletic or more athletic or longer than he is, he doesn't have the lift to score around the basket.
So what do they do in what should we do, or should Indiana do? That's the question, because they weren't
Geronimo to be healthy.
Yeah.
Caleb Banks has shown, and Caleb Banks is not Race Thompson, but the play of Caleb Banks here of late, he has taken advantage of his minutes. He's really, really played his ass off, played hard. I'd love to see him in there.
He's not strong, though, or physical enough to play in the next 2 games, which are against Purdue and Rutgers. I mean, he's just not. He's got a slender frame, so not sure if Geronimo will be ready or not. He must have had high ankle sprain or something. That's why he's in a boot. He's got to have some kind of. It's not surgery, so it has to be an ankle type thing. Maybe he'll be ready. There was some hints he might play yesterday. He didn't even warm up, I guess. But you just gotta get Renew to play at some point too, and not foul so much. I mean, it's at some point he needs to sort of process the idea that you can't be so handsy on defense, and you can't foul. Did he foul out last night and played less than 15 minutes? Whatever it was, I don't know. It wasn't many minutes.
Right.
Yeah, I don't. Let's see. I'll have to look that up. Probably wouldn't surprise me. He usually does. It picks those up. That's going to be a key Saturday against Purdue, and playing against their lineup. They're going to definitely draw a lot of fouls. Zach Edey is going to be a foul drawing machine.
But this is what's going to be really interesting to me, because I think if I'm Indiana and I have Trace Jackson Davis, they can get Zach Edey into foul trouble. Now a lot of things.
How are you going to do that when he doesn't foul? He doesn't.
They don't
he's
call
not
fouls on him.
They don't call fouls on him.
Time out.
Renew had 5 fouls in 13 minutes.
So this would be my argument. The Zach Edey thing. A lot of teams, when they are playing him, they turn into jump shooting teams. So there's not really that chance for him to pick up those fouls. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't foul. It's crazy to look at his numbers. But I think Indiana's going to be more aggressive around the rim, and therefore he's going to pick up more fouls. I don't know whether he's going to get 3 or 4 fouls. I just think that the opportunity is there because Indiana's not going to rely on its jump shooting, in my opinion. If they're smart, they wouldn't rely on their jump shooting in that game. Try to attack him and see if you can get some fouls on him.
Well, I will say this.
Zach Edey has not had more than 3 fouls in a Big Ten game all season. And in his last 5 games, he's had 7 total fouls. He had 2 games, Minnesota and Michigan. He played 37 minutes against Michigan State, and didn't foul.
Wow.
So,
that's he's going to end up setting a statistical record at the end of the season for most minutes and least fouls called on him. Trace Jackson Davis is going to have to take the ball to Zach Edey.
Yes,
That's
he
what
is.
I'm saying.
He's going to have to take it right to him and try to change that. And because Zach Edey's going to draw that assignment.
Remember what happened last year, though, when they played in Assembly Hall? It was Trace Jackson Davis that got in foul trouble and was out of the game after, I think, 3 minutes, right, in the first half.
Right.
And Michael Durr was the guy who played. And he's not there this year. And if you thought maybe Logan Duncombe, this would be the perfect game for Logan Duncombe because of his size, but, he's
hurt.
He's
hurt, not played, not gotten any minutes.
Really, there's no way you can really trust putting him in. He's never played in any high.
And he wasn't even dressed for the last game.
Right. Yeah, he's been out now. 3 or 4 games. So
I
don't know.
Yeah,
it's going to be a fascinating defensive decision that Mike Woodson's going to have to make.
Yeah, I mean, is he going to put Trace on him or Race Jackson or Race Thompson? That's a question. Who's going to guard Zach Edey?
Multiple guys.
Well, I mean, it's going to take more than one. But I mean, someone's going to draw the assignment.
They can't allow Trace to get too many fouls, and otherwise they're cooked.
And that's why Race Thompson will most likely draw the assignment. I would imagine.
Right.
Yep,
but is Race quick enough to keep up with him right now?
I don't know. I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, Jackson Davis is just going to have to play like a Player of the Year candidate. He is. I mean, this game's going to be hyped up as it is. Isn't Dickie V doing the game?
Yes. Oh yeah, baby.
He's going
to get him on. He's going to get him back on the show again, and he's saving his voice.
Right.
He's not doing radio.
He can't afford to get in foul trouble. Plus, Rob Finney's not around. Remember last year, wasn't it Rob Finney and Xavier Johnson?
He was the
Rob
hero.
Finney and Xavier Johnson and Michael Durr were the stars of the game, I think.
Well,
yeah.
One of the things that is going to be interesting too is Michigan. When the game was at Michigan State between Purdue and Michigan State, Tom Izzo basically, we'll let Zach Edey get whatever he wants, but we're not picking up fouls. We're not going to let the guards beat us from behind the 3-point line. It's going to be interesting if Indiana has that same sort of philosophy where if he can't just at times you got to let him score because it's better than picking up fouls in terms of the long run. It's going to be a fascinating matchup to me to see how this thing goes. And it'll probably be dictated in the first 5 to 8 minutes as to how the whistles are going would be my guess as to how they're going to play. But this is as good of a Player of the Year matchup as it could possibly be in the Big Ten. And I think I hope that the officials let them play a little bit on both ends because I want to see Trace and Zach Edey go head to head.
They'd get the ultimate, and I don't even know who that would be, and if there is such a thing, the ultimate A crew from the Big Ten. This is the game, best game in the Big Ten this weekend.
It's going to come down to shooting for Indiana. I think that's where they have to beat Purdue. They're going to have to use other weapons to win this game. And I think and more importantly, they've got to just stop Purdue's freshman guards. You've got to stop. If you stop them from shooting or stop them from scoring on the perimeter, Zach Edey can still score and lose the game. There's other things that they can do and they probably will need to do and more focus on to win this game because Zach Edey's going to get his. unless you've come up with some magical way that no one else has to stop him. But there's other ways to beat Purdue, and I think that's what they're going to have to exploit, especially with a pair of freshman guards. And this is where it really, really hurts not having Xavier Johnson out there to put that kind of pressure on these guys, to put that kind of defense on either Fletcher Lawyer or Braden Smith
for sure.
And so that's going to be the key. And I think that those guys can be disrupted enough to that could be a very, very impactful part of the game.
Yeah, I mean they play great. I mean they're the surprise story really in the Big Ten, that Purdue's been able to lead the league the way they have with playing 2 freshman guards who weren't. Maybe one of them was a 4-star recruit, the other was a 3-star. It's not like we're talking about one and done guys, but they've come in, and everybody thought with Jaden Ivey gone and Stefanovic gone that Purdue's backcourt would be an issue, and it hasn't been. So it's up to Hood Schifino, and it's up to Galloway, and it's up to Bates, and maybe even CJ Gunn to play defense and make those guys uncomfortable. And not many teams have done that to Purdue this year. You have to give Painter. I did have him in my preseason top 25 towards the bottom. Most people didn't, but I think that he's proven over the years that when he has enough, decent parts, he can make. He optimizes what he has. He does, among his many other skills of finding guys. He's not afraid to take a guy that other schools don't want because he thinks, I don't care how he's rated, what other people think of him. I like this. I can make something out of this. If you come here, you will succeed. And his track record of getting these unknown big guys and turning them into something is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I wonder how many people had Purdue in the top 25.
Not many.
You may be the only one. You should take great credit in that. I'm serious.
Well, it wasn't high, but I did have him in there like 23 or something.
It's true. I mean, I don't know why people wouldn't have, other than, well, they lost because of losing.
It's because of all they lost.
Williams and Ivy and Stefanovic.
Ivy, yeah.
And they have a couple of other guards transfer, like Thompson and another one. There was they lost 2 guards, I think, went in the portal from last year.
Yeah.
But they're rolling, man. Assembly Hall is going to be on fire. This is going to be bigger than last year's game, I think, because Indiana's having more success, or now they've got that taste of success that they hadn't had last year. That was the first time. Assembly Hall will be absolutely on fire on Saturday.
Yeah, it will be. Trace Jackson Davis had 4 points in 11 minutes in that game last year in Assembly Hall. Rob Finney had 20 points with 4 threes. Was the MVP of the game at Ken Palm. So Edie had 12 points in 25 minutes and committed 1 foul. So there's your track record.
Are you coming up for this game?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Nice.
Wouldn't miss that.
Look forward to it.
It's the game of the day in college basketball. I think a lot of people are rightfully critical of ESPN. I know that they're, wedded
going to Duke.
Duke Carolina, most years it's a phenomenal game. This year it's not. But we all know with the Big Ten breaking away from ESPN and ESPN being all in on the ACC and the SEC, that the Big Ten's going to get scraps until the contract ends, and then it'll get less than scraps. We already know the ACC Big Ten Challenge is going away. So, all in on Fox for the Big Ten. That's what you got to do.
Yeah, I'm surprised Fox has not started, since they have the same thing going with football, that they haven't started a college game day type thing on basketball, because they do a lot of broadcasting of basketball. So why not? I'm surprised they don't do that.
Yeah, maybe they will. Maybe they will as they get, farther along into it. They've been pretty methodical about, improving their product and having more offering going forward. And I think I like their studio show much better than ESPN's. I'm not a Seth Greenberg fan, and I'd rather see, Jimmy Jackson and Jacobson and a few other guys that we have. on the Fox crew. But yeah, you're right. I've been on SeatGeek. I've seen other people. I mean, it's like what, $600 minimum to get in the lower bowl, maybe even, much higher than that. It's probably going to be $300 to get in the balcony, and IU losing might hurt that a small amount, but it's a 4:00 game, so the students will be there early and be jacked up, and I mean it's going to be.
They'll be drunk by then, probably.
They'll be drunk. So it'll be.
It's a dry campus, though. Don't worry.
It'll be interesting to see if IU pulls out all the stops the way they did before the North Carolina game and had the pep band on the floor and all that stuff before the game, just to really juice the crowd. You remember that? Right?
Oh, it's going to be an exciting. It's just going to be fun, no matter what. I hope it ends up.
It's the way it should be every year. I mean, this is what IU Purdue should be every year, and the game at Mackey should be the same. It's the way it should be. I think Indiana is the best basketball state in the country, and these are the two Big Ten programs, and they should show out and show their best when they play each other. And Indiana needs to do a better job of making it a rivalry. I mean, they did win that game last year, but they need to win one of the two games every year. They do.
And Indiana needs to do a better job of getting their former players back involved in everything. Right. That's partly because of too many different coaches. Right. That's a big part of it. But because talking to all the different players, like, geez, you got guys from the Woodson era now, the Crean era,
Mike
Davis. Of course, I skipped over a little Rhodey.
Or Calvin Sampson. He didn't have much of an era other than Eric Gordon.
No, you can even add Dan Dockich into that, and so then before you go back tonight, but it seemed like there's just too much of a separation between those guys, and I think it does make a difference. It makes a huge difference, I think.
Well, I'll say this real quick. I know one thing Louisville's done this year. They've made at least one ticket available to every former player for every game, and if you come, and then you can buy one if you're bringing somebody with you, and then they have a little reception room on the main floor of the KFC Yum Center where they have food before the game, and there's usually 20, to 25 players show up for every game, and they sit there before the game and have something to eat. And I've seen guys from Peyton Siva's been there. David Padgett's been there, Daryl Griffith, different guys. That would be some. I don't know if Indiana has the ticket availability to do something like that. But
well, every player gets every player has the ability to have 2 tickets anytime they want.
Every former player?
Yes.
Oh wow. Well, that's good.
All they have to do is make the phone call, and they have 2 tickets available to them.
That's what they should do.
It's part of it is too, though. Now I think most of Indiana players they're not here. They're everywhere.
Spread out. Yeah.
Very, very few are here. I can name probably 10 that are here, and there's probably a couple in Indianapolis, but most are just not here. But you would think with the numbers that you would be able to. There's so much to be here all the time. I think they should work to have players here every game. Have someone that works the phone. Hey man, what are you doing? Are you available? So I think it's good for the school. It's good for the program to have those guys back to show them, to show that support.
Yeah, it seems like so much of the game atmosphere or whatever is still geared towards recruits than geared towards past, which I understand. What's up for me tonight? Georgia Tech, Louisville, 7:00. Louisville's best chance to get an ACC win.
I was gonna say,
get your coffee ready.
And then Saturday I'll be up. Jeff Brom's having a press conference at 2:00 today to announce his entire coaching staff, which includes a former IU linebacker and defensive coach Mark Hagan, who's a really good recruiter in Central Indiana. So Louisville's going to be a presence recruiting the state of Indiana.
That's Hagan's a great get for him. I know he already had him, but he's a great get. I mean, that's a loss for Indiana, to be honest with you.
Oh, he's been on the IU staff twice and left, right? I think he's left. Yeah,
huge loss for Indiana.
Yeah. Well, he'll be here. That's a 2:00 press conference, and then the game tonight, and then I'll be in Bloomington on Saturday.
Can't wait, brother. Look forward to seeing you.
All right. Save me a seat.
The great Rick Bozich from
Great day, guys.
WDRB.com.
All right.
Make sure you go there and get all the information. Make sure you're following Rick as well on Twitter. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends from Reynolds Family Dentistry. If you're down in southern Indiana and Sellersburg area, stop by and see Dr. J to get that championship smile. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighborhood. You be mine. Could you be mine?
Oh, boy. Chop down that big tree in reverse. Post like TJD, but Edie is just bigger. He might be a 7-footer on paper, but plays even bigger. Good point.
I would send in every walk-on I have and beat the living shit out of him. I'm not kidding. I'm sorry, but I would say your job is to draw 5 fouls, and every foul better inflicts pain. I want you to knee him in the thigh. I want you to punch him in the ribs. Hey, I'm sorry. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. You can't stop this son of a bitch. There's only one way. You can't stop him. You got to do whatever you got to do.
So your strategy is to hurt him?
Not hurt him.
Well, he's a 70+% free throw shooter.
There's that.
So you're going to put him on the line, and he's probably going to get.
He didn't go to the line until they get into the bonus.
Here we go, boys.
Their guests with an exceptional dining experience. With weekly specials, quick, attentive service, Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you here on this Wednesday. It's February 1st. Appreciate everybody being along. Indiana lost last night, of course, to Maryland. No shocker to me. I expected them to lose that game. Maryland is just tougher than nails at home, and they are. And Indiana had won 5 games. That streak was going to end at some point. And maybe that grabbed their attention and
for a refocus on Purdue. A loss will sometimes do that. During the break, I was having kind of a joking conversation of how to handle Zach Edey, and I said I'd send in every walk-on in and say, your job is to draw 5 fouls, baby, and make them count. But of course, yes, several people have pointed out that he is including Dustin, a 75% free throw shooter. That's okay. The aggregate of the fouls should take their toll, is your hope. Of course, I'm just kidding.
You gotta. I don't know. Look, I'm just saying. I go back to that Nebraska game was that December, I believe, in Lincoln. And even the game in which Nebraska came to Mackey Arena in January, I think Fred Hoiberg has had the best strategy against Purdue, and that is to not allow Zach Edey to get low post presence, which is a very difficult thing to do. Don't let him.
But how do you do that? That's the thing.
You double team him.
And Indiana has the ability and physical to do that.
You establish yourself down low early, and you try to – I mean, you're going to have to forearm in his back or something. Don't let him get low post position. Keep him.
The thing is, that's going to fall on Race Thompson, and he's not 100%. And I don't know that he has the physical capabilities of doing that. Malik Renew, we know, will foul out if he did it, he'll foul out in 10 minutes of the game.
Right.
And then, of course, Trace Jackson Davis, you cannot afford to have him draw fouls on it.
Right. Basically, what Nebraska did in that first game particularly, well, they did it in both games. It just – in both games, they dared Purdue to beat them with their jump shooting. We'll give you the threes. If you make them, you beat us. In that game in Lincoln, Purdue didn't hit squat, and they almost lost. Then you go to the game in Mackey, and they did hit shots, and they blew Nebraska out. Now, they were without 1 or 2 of their players. I can't remember. But that's the formula that I think and Michigan State went kind of an opposite route. They said, we'll let Zach Edey get what he needs. We're not going to let the guards beat us. But the thing that they cannot do, this is what they cannot do. Purdue is really good when Braden Smith gets penetration. They are really good. They cannot be stopped. So if you don't allow those guards to penetrate and throw those lob passes where Edey can catch them, Indiana's going to be in great shape. So I actually think, yes, the stopping Zach Edey, not allowing him to get low post presence is huge. But if you can stop their guards and keep them behind the 3-point line, Indiana's going to have a much better opportunity to win that game because their entry passing is not great. It's because they're able to get penetration, and then you just lob it up and he can catch it.
Well, he can also pass out of that as well.
He can, right?
And that's why you've got shutting down Purdue's perimeter game and guards. Is what's going to take to win this game. You're not going to – I don't think you're going to stop Zach Edey. Sorry. Maybe if it happens, great. I'm wrong, but I don't think you're going to stop Zach Edey. So don't try to stop Zach Edey. Zach Edey is not winning the games for Purdue. He's only how many he's averaging what, 22 points a game?
What is happening?
My point being is his 22 points do not win the games. It's the aggregate around him that also wins the games. So you're going to have to put your focus elsewhere. And if you can shut down that production, because Edey's production is going to happen.
Right.
You're just not going to stop it. So, and especially with
you can't
Purdue's guards being freshmen, I think you
part of it is you can stop it, but you have to shut
disrupt
down.
it.
You can disrupt it. That's a better way to phrase it. Yes, you can disrupt it, but it starts with the guards. You have to take them out of the game because if they're not getting him the ball, that's the best way. Just don't let him get the ball. But that is going to be guard pressure. That puts more pressure on Hood Schifino, on Galloway, Miller Kopp, if you will. Whoever else is going to be on the floor, they're going to have to play the best defensive game they've played all season. And it's going to have to be with the guards because, like you said, you're not going to completely shut down Zach Edey. You can take him out of his element. You can disrupt him. The key is to not let him get as many touches. And that's really hard for a 7'4" guy. And if he does get the touches, make sure they're further away from the basket.
Maybe someone could pay Penn State off to really take care of the action tonight.
That's not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
No, because Micah Shrewsbury was a former Painter assistant.
I'm kidding. Hey, man, it's been an incredible day as always. A great show. Big thanks to John, the producer, and Dustin Schutte for keeping things rolling as always. Of course, Bob Kravitz, they kicked Kyle Denrip off today. They didn't want to talk about high school. Rick Bozich, of course, from WDRB.com as always. Great thanks to all those guys. And we're back tomorrow to do this all again and start setting the stage for this week's big game between Indiana and Purdue. And it is a gigantic game. And I don't care what ESPN says. It's the game of the week, baby. It's huge. Number 1 team in the country. Wow. Potential upset of the – I might have to look. When was the last time Indiana beat a number 1 team in the country in Assembly Hall?
I can't remember.
I can tell you right now. Go back to Christian Watford, baby. Shot. Wasn't Kentucky number 1 at the time?
Yep.
Let's wrap up.
Yep.
All right. We're getting beat on the knuckles. We got to close her out. Big thanks to everybody again, like I said, but most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you, we've got no reason to be here. We appreciate you. We're back tomorrow to do it all again. And until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I'll see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.